It is way too early to do a power list, but when we thought about it, some interesting things that have happened already. Like most of the teams who were fancied by the bookies have started like their pants are around their ankles. Also, some of the worst teams on paper have to be upgraded because part of their lineups are working better than we thought, right? So this is the first power rankings. This isn't your auntie's points table. This is a power ranking, whatever that means. South Africa did not choke. In 1906, South Africa needed 284 to win. They'd only passed 100 in half their test innings at that point. At 105 for 6, it seemed impossible. They fought back but lost another flurry, leaving 45 to win with 1 wicket in hand. At the crease was Dave Norse, who was a capable batter, and he was joined by Percy Sherwell, the only debutant captain keeper and number 11 in Test cricket history. And these two were doing it. A huge crowd in South Africa cheered on every single run. With 8 left, Sherwell edged between slips for 4. Straight after, Norse ran a 3. England bowled 3 dots. All they needed was 1 wicket to tie. Instead, a leg side full toss, boundary, game over. This was Test cricket's first 1-wicket win, and the last partnership was a record for almost 100 years. But it was also something else. This was the first Test match that South Africa had ever won. Buy my book on Amazon, Overthrowing Cricket's Empire. RCB have won against CSK and won against KKR. Both of those teams are lower down our list. However, they were both away, and I like away wins a lot. And 2 of the next 3 games are at home, 1 against Gujarat, then they're going to Mumbai, and then against DC. If they win both of their home games, we're talking about a team who's 4-1. 3-2 seems very doable, and I think that's a pretty good start to the season when your first 2 games are away. Obviously, their chances of winning this title are so dependent on Josh Hazlewood and Bhuvi Kumar. And one of the reasons I've got them ranked so high is they won away from home without Bhuvi in 1 game. These two can essentially bowl 5 overs in the power play. It all gets a little bit ickier all the way through, but if they hold their own or even do very well, it's a very different season that we're looking at here. But we knew about that already. The person I was sort of most intrigued by was Phil Salt, because if you got KKR's Phil Salt, that's fine. If you got recent England Phil Salt, that's not as good. And the thing with a player like Phil Salt is he's probably always due a bunch of very low scores at any stage, right? And you don't know if that's going to come in the season or when he plays in his next franchise, when he goes back and plays for England. But at the moment, he gets RCB off to a great start, and they've got the players to back him up if Phil Salt works. If he doesn't work, I don't like this batting lineup as much. Also, if you're looking for more good signs, they've not had Kohli and Bhuvi at different times, right? Like, those are 2 very important players to this particular side, the way that they're set up. And yet, at the moment, it's not mattering. This could just be a form thing. They might just have a bunch of players who are in form at the right time. They've won a couple of away games. We'll probably know a lot more once they've played 5 games. But even if they lose the next 3, they're still only 2-3. I think that's more than fine. I've got Punjab too, and I know, it's high. They've only played 1 game and they've won it. But it's worth noting that these rankings are also based on where I had the teams before the season, right? Rajasthan have gone up massively. Punjab actually haven't lifted that much from where I originally had them, because I was higher on them than pretty much every other person was. Another thing I like, of course, is winning away from home. Their next 3 games are at Lucknow, which is a very winnable game, and then 2 home ones against Rajasthan and CSK. They could easily be 3-1 without having particularly played brilliant cricket. It's a good start. I love the way that they batted against Gujarat, especially Priyansh Arya, who went a bit nutso, and they had a very, very big score there. But I think the main story has to be Shreyas Iyer, who's decided that anchoring is no longer the cool thing to do, and he's batting the way that, I don't know, I would really have always wanted him to bat like. And I don't know if the short ball is still a problem or not a problem or whatever it is, but he's decided he's just going to try and whack it, and on a lot of days, he's getting away with it. Also worth a shout out to Vijay Vijay Kumar, who played a interesting role in their win when he came on as the impact sub to bowl the 15th, 17th, and 19th overs. There's a lot of wide full tosses in there, but there was a lot of solid thinking as well. He knew what he was doing. Not quite executed perfectly, but, you know, there was something there. Delhi are unbeaten in their first 2 games, both at home. I think we're going to know a lot more about them in the next 3 games because they go to Chennai, RCB, and then they're playing against Mumbai. But you're supposed to win the games at home, and they won the games at home. Absolutely no issue from me here. Faf is looking good. He's 40, but still a great power play batter, right? So they've gone with him and McGurk at the top, with Porrell and Carroll at 3 and 4. It's kind of an interesting structure to their top 4, right? If Faf keeps doing what he's doing and Fraser McGurk works even to a normal level, and that anchor innings the other day was absolutely wild. It was maybe more wild than I've ever seen an anchor innings be. You can see how this top 4 fits together quite nicely. Long way to go. You've got a 40-year-old and a guy who hasn't made any runs opening the batting at the top, but good signs. Also worth remembering, one reason why I've got Delhi just slightly lower in my rankings at the moment is that they are 2-0, but one of those games was a real coin toss. I mean, that came down to a 1-wicket win. I don't think you ever want to be in a situation where you're relying on 1-wicket wins. But having said that, Smashatosh played absolutely brilliantly in the way that he went. And I really like their game against the Sunrisers as well. The Gujarat Titans beat MI, but they lost to the Punjab Kings. Both of those games were at home. Their next 3 games are at RCB, Sunrisers, and then a home game versus the Royals. Honestly, of all the teams on here, it was perhaps them and Rajasthan that I had the least idea of where to put. They're clearly very, very dependent on their top 3 batting, and we've seen that usually not work over a longer season, right? They're going with 2 anchors at the top while telling us that they're going to maximize the power play, while not, in fact, maximizing the power play. It's also fair to say that Butler is not the old Butler, especially in the power play where he started to become quite slow. And I know they like the right-hand, left-hand thing, but I still think they might eventually have to rejig this top 3. They've started playing Rutherford, and I really like Rutherford, but you do have Glenn Phillips at the other end. Eventually, Glenn Phillips is going to have a very explosive season in an IPL. I can see why they might not be using him, though. I can see why they go with Rutherford, but perhaps they could bench Rabada and actually go all in on Rutherford and Phillips in the middle, which does change their batting order quite a bit. Because they do actually have 3 Indian seamers who, if used correctly, I think can be quite handy. Siraj will obviously get the new ball. When Ishant plays as the impact sub, he should get the new ball as well. And Prashant Krishna can bowl in the middle. Rabada is obviously the best bowler out of all of them. But because they can cover him he doesn't quite fit in as well as you might like. However, they might just want Rabada because of the depth. The big question you have to ask with Gujarat is how good a team is this if Washington Sundar cannot get in the 12? MI beat KKR easily, and they lost at Gujarat and CSK. So that means they're 1-2. And when you look at the early season scheduling, this is not good for a team that does not have Jasprit Bumrah because 4 of their first 6 games are away. So even if they found some form at home, they've still got to go to Lucknow, then they play RCB at home before going to Delhi. So while the scheduler might not like them, their scouts are still doing really well. Vignesh Pathur has done very well with his left arm wrist spin so far, taking wickets in his first game. He's not a fully polished player at the moment, and he's going to have games where he gets hit, but I can see how he's going to take a lot of wickets. Ashwani Kumar, I don't know if he's going to take wickets consistently, but he is the sort of bowler in his first season I could see might take a lot of wickets and also get some tap. But if they both take wickets, that's a lot of wickets. But Rohit's form is still a cause for concern. He's not the captain anymore, so they could technically move on from him, but that's a big decision to drop Rohit Sharma, right? And let's not forget that his last great IPL season was a long time ago, and he hasn't had that many great IPL seasons either. Worth a shout out to Hardik Pandya's batting the other day, where he put together his best 42-year-old past his prime version of Dhoni. I just hit the ball, mate. You've got such a deep batting lineup in this side. Just hit the ball. I have Lucknow next, and I'll be honest, every single member of my team thinks that they're too high. But they did beat Sunrisers away from home, and they almost so close against Delhi as well. They could be 2-0. And their next 2 games are at home versus Punjab and Mumbai before they have a game at KKR. They could be 3-2. That's a feasible thing for them to be. It's probably more likely that they're 2-3. But even so, I would say that's much better than I thought they were going to be this year. It's also worth remembering that Mayank Yadav and Mohsin Khan haven't been available. They've probably already got Shardul Thakur's best game of the year because he doesn't play that many great games in the IPL. And that's why he wasn't signed in the first place. But he is a good bench player, and he's been handy here. One thing I like about Lucknow is they have 2 wrist spinners available to them in Ravi Bishnoi and Digvijay Ravi. He took a couple of important wickets in the first game that they won as well. The only problem at the moment is both of these guys have gone for runs, but that might have something to do with the wickets as well. And Prince Yadav has bowled pretty quick and hit the stumps already this year. But at the moment, they are being carried by Pooran. Can you have a team that is carried by Nicholas Pooran and Shardul Thakur? Probably not. But geez, it'd be fun if they could. We have CSK next, who lost against Rajasthan Royals away and then split their 2 home games against RCB and Mumbai. One of the reasons I've got them a little bit lower is they've got a lot of home games packed into the start of the season, and they're not playing particularly well. If they split their next 2 home games and lose away, we're looking at a team that is 2-4 with a lot of home games early in the season. Gaikwad has decided to just hit like crazy from first drop, and he's got a great strike rate at the moment. And Raja Ravindra has actually sort of become the anchor in some ways. The biggest problem is that those 2 have over 200 runs combined, and the rest of the batters have 81. That's not a lot of runs. When it comes to the spin bowlers, which we're waiting for, Noor Ahmed has been incredible. He has 9 for 82 in 12 overs. But Ashwin has 3 for 99 in 10, while Jadeja has 1 wicket in 8 overs with 68 runs. So coming into the season, what I really thought would happen here is you'd have the two finger spinners be really, really frugal, and then Noor Ahmed would take wickets. So far, he's done his part of the job. They haven't done theirs. The great news for CSK is that Partha Rana looks back. Not 100%, but he looks much more back than he did in South Africa when he just wasn't at his best. They went with Sam Curran for the first couple of games, and he didn't really do what they wanted him to do, so they replaced him with Jamie Overton, which is the flexibility they have. And in Jamie Overton's last game, he didn't bowl well, he didn't bat well, and he didn't field well. They might also just have to bring Devon Conway in if no one else is going to make any runs. The Sunrisers lost to Delhi on the road, and they split their home games versus Lucknow and Rajasthan. Coming up in their next three, they've got two more home games against Gujarat and Punjab, but they do have to travel to Kolkata. Looking at their schedule, they could easily be 3-3, but they have been a little bit more disappointing than we would have thought so far, especially with the fact that Head has 136 runs at a strike rate of 192 so far in this tournament. Like, if he's doing that, you would have expected them to win more than one game. And think back to how he felt after the first game when they were going to reach 300. Now it looks like they might need to bat 40 overs to make it to 300. But they have had some positives as well. Aniket Verma has been a real find so far. He's made 36 off 13, 74 off 41, and he's hit 11 sixes and striking at nearly 238. They do seem to find guys who can whack him. And on paper, they have a very good strike bowling lineup with Harshal Patel, Mohammad Shami, and Adam Zampa. Yet they've only managed, as a team, 14 wickets in 3 games at the moment. I can't imagine that a lineup like this won't just take more wickets going forward. KKR started with 2 games on the road, and they split them, but then they lost the game against RCB, so 1-2. And now they have 2 matches back at home against Sunrisers and Lucknow before travelling to Chennai. So I suppose we could see a bit of a bounce back from them. It's actually very possible, looking at form and their opponents and everything else, that they win the next 3 games in a row. It's just that watching them play, I'm not sure how they can. I mean, their biggest issue has to be the power play bowling. Johnson, Arora, Harshit Rana have gone for runs and not picked up any wickets at all. They don't need a lot from their power play bowling, but they need something. And if you're starting your bowling well, and also your batting isn't really firing, you're kind of losing on both sides of the ball at the moment. I mean, against Mumbai, they weren't really in the game. And against RCB, they were in an incredible situation before the collapse. A lot of their season might just rely on what Sunil Narine does with the bat. And he made runs in the first game, despite the fact that he hadn't made any runs since the last IPL. But in his last game, he looked like the Sunil Narine who was never going to make runs again. Because they've lost Salt and also Shreyas Iyer, I think Sunil Narine almost has to make runs, and that is not a position that anyone wants to be in because you cannot rely on his batting. It should be the cherry on top. I kind of feel at the moment with him and QDK, they're always going to lose a wicket early, which I think opens them up a little bit because everyone seems to be batting a little bit higher than before. Rajasthan Royals lost their first game at Sunrisers, although I'm not sure that's the best way of putting that game. They also lost versus KKR, and then they beat CSK. One of the reasons I got them a little bit lower is their next 2 games are away. They play Punjab and Gujarat on the road before they go and play RCB, who's currently the top team in the league. So even the most optimistic take, you would say, is probably 1-2. But there is a possibility that they really struggle in these 3 games. Jofra Archer went for 76 runs in 4 overs, the most ever. And then he also bowled the first maiden. But when there's something going on in the air, on the pitch, like there was when he bowled the other night, he looks unplayable. The problem is, I don't think you can rely on him to be good every single game. And I think Rajasthan are going to have to rely on him to be good in every single game. Tikshana's form is probably a little bit concerning as well. He took wickets in the first game, but went for lots of runs. Since then, he's been more of a defensive option, but not taking any wickets. I think what happened was he got whacked in the first game and he's pulled it back. I think you really want him to take wickets, though. I know he's not like an out-and-out strike bowler, but you want him to at least be threatening wickets all the way through, especially looking at their lineup. He's also bowled at various times all through the innings, which I have no problem with because I've seen him do that before for franchises and also for Sri Lanka. But it feels like to me they're not quite sure the best time to use him right now. Worth mentioning, Jaiswal hasn't made any runs. I'm not too worried about that at all. It's only a couple of games in. And Nitesh Rana has become Jaiswal. I mean, what the hell is going on there? I love all these previous anchors suddenly going, no, we can smash it. We could always smash it. But the one thing I would say for Rajasthan at the moment is I think a few of their top order players have actually got in and showed decent form at the moment. They've just got to kind of all bring it together. So the way too early power list is RCB, Punjab, Delhi, Gujarat, MI, LSG, CSK, Sunrisers, KKR, and the Rajasthan Royals. And let me try and explain this order a little bit. With RCB, I just really like the away wins. It's a great way to start your season, just like their players often are by their past management. Mumbai have a little bit higher because of their 2 losses away, and I expect them to be a lot better when Bumrah comes back. But with Bournemouth not coming back anytime soon, they've still got a tough few games ahead of them, so they might have a big drop from here. LSG could have won 2 in a row, but I still have grave concerns, and this might be as high as they get all year. CSK, Sunrisers, and KKR. Honestly, I think you could just throw them up in the air, and whichever order they land in, you could just shrug and be like, okay, that's fine. My thoughts are that Chennai's wickets will spin later in the year. You cannot pick a team like this and not eventually give them the wickets to back it up. And I also think that Sunrisers is going to win a lot of games just by smashing the ball so far. So KKR is the only one of those teams at the moment that I don't see an immediate path to getting better. But also at the start of the year, I had them rated at like 5th. And so for me, I was never that high on them. And apologies to Rajasthan. I have them last, which seems unfair. But there are no teams without a win at the moment. So if you take the 3 teams without a loss out of this, you can kind of mash the rest of the teams in any order that you want. Like if you flipped Rajasthan and LSG right now, I'd be like, okay, I can understand that as well. Next week we could have some very big movies in either direction. And that is it. As always, I'm sure every single comment will just be there telling everyone how handsome I am and how I got every single thing right. Remember to tell your mum about us. And if you haven't watched the new podcast with me and Robin Utapa together, then you should watch the new podcast with me and Robin Utapa together. Kimber.